Anyway, let's get to the hoax hate, because it's back after a week hiatus.
Kind of.
And now the nobody saw it happen, but it's totally a product of Trump's America hoax hate crime of the week.
Ah, shit, it's backwards. You think they'll notice? We'll get to the backward swastikas in a moment. No backward swastikas in this particular story, but the hoax hate is indeed real. This is Pioneer High School in Ann Arbor, Michigan. A group of black students claimed they faced a racially hostile environment at the high school. An independent investigation has now confirmed that no such racially hostile environment existed. The claim originated in August 2020 when a black student filed a complaint with the Michigan Department of Civil Rights, claiming that one specific teacher had engaged in a variety of actions that were hostile to black students. So this teacher had allegedly insulted black students and their parents in front of the class, humiliated black students who were struggling in class by putting their grades up on a board for everyone to see. This teacher was hostile to students who were members of the Black Student Union. This teacher used coded language against black students, calling them criminals and delinquents. Didn't use the J word. This teacher refused to bring her class to the Black History Month assembly because it was, quote, a waste of time. And
this is so based. I hope this is all true.
Touched black students in a hostile manner without consent. This allegation was basically tugged at a student's arm to get the student's attention or something to that effect. To the extent there was physical contact, it's alleged to have been very minor. Well, the school commissioned an independent investigation by the law firm Dykema.
Oh,
Hilarious.
Lord.
I'm sure it's a bunch of Dykemas over at Dykema who handled this properly. But the investigation was hampered by the accusing student's refusal to interview with investigators. The accusing family, student Michaela Kelsey and her mom, Charmel Kelsey, were represented by attorneys with the Civil Rights Litigation Initiative at the University of Michigan Law School. So this must be some state program where law students or early lawyers, like lawyers in the early part of their career, agree to represent struggling people with civil rights claims. Okay, so because they were represented by these lawyers under this program, the investigating lawyers could not contact the alleged victims directly. The family's legal representation refused to make the accusing family available for an interview. In fact, none of the other students who were part of the accusations were made available for interview either. Many of them remained completely anonymous throughout the history of the accusation. So the investigation could not confirm any of Michaela Kelsey or any of the other anonymous students' claims because of their refusal to participate in the investigation. But get this, despite no evidence for the racial hostility, in large part because those claiming the racial hostility wouldn't even participate in the investigation, the investigating law firm Dykema still provided recommendations to the school, including an improved complaint and investigation system with a special officer and the implementation of an equity plan. And teacher and staff trainings, presumably about diversity and equity and all that. I noticed there was no recommendation to the accusing student or her mom to stop lying their asses off. I would like a formal recommendation in the report about that, but it does not include that. I don't know. I'm just pleased that for once there was something a little more creative than the old separate but equal drinking fountains that we've seen. So
was this more creative? They just levied a bunch of false accusations against some poor teacher that probably did nothing or is really based.
Maybe the teacher's. I don't know if the teacher. I didn't see anything to say that the teacher was punished. So as far as I know, the teacher is still there. But anyway, I teased backward swastikas. They are indeed in this story. Hidden Villa is a nonprofit in Los Altos Hills. This is in Bay Area, California. It's known for its pastoral landscape and educational programs. It is the site of summer camps for kids. I don't know exactly what kind of summer camps, but you go there, you learn things, you have a good time. But on June 8th, Hidden Valley announced it has canceled all of this year's summer camp sessions due to the abrupt departure of camp staff members, disrupting the summer plans of nearly 1,000 children who intended to attend summer camps at Hidden Villa. Staff, however, say the departure was not abrupt. Rather, it was after months of a slow-burning conflict of the handling of pre-Nazi swastika tiles that are embedded into the exterior of a camp building. The tiles, of course, are a Buddhist symbol. Again, this is the backward swastika, sort of not in an S orientation, but a backward S orientation, and not at a 45-degree angle, but at right angles. That predates the Third Reich, and it's been part of the camp architecture and building design since 1913, well before the German Nazi Party adopted and modified the symbol. Now, get this: the ownership apparently was the actual camp founders who purchased these Buddhist pieces from Asia back in 1913, and they've been part of the family or the ownership group for over 100 years. And so the ownership had been resistant to the staff push to try to get these taken down. And then all the staff quit because they're uncomfortable by these things. And the worst of all possible outcomes happened. They cancel on the kids, and then on June 7th, Hidden Villa took down the alleged swastikas anyway.
They already quit.
Yes. They hired some consulting group, and the consulting group told them to take them down. So, again, congratulations to the tolerant, progressive camp staff. It's way better to ruin the summer plans of 1,000 kids and families than it is to risk those kids seeing a shape that hurts you. And when I say you, it was predominantly who? And by their own admission in this story, it's mostly white progressive camp counselors who can't handle this imagery. The imagery that's been on display for over 100 years.
And they knew, and you couldn't rationalize with them, even though that wasn't the intent and it wasn't the same symbol. It's just because they felt that it represented something different, that it had to be dealt with. These people are retards.
Great. Yes, absolutely. Just crushing it for the kids of Bay Area, California. Congratulations. Meanwhile, this is not really hoax hate. It's not a hoax. It's interesting to question who's characterized as the threat to children in this story. This is across the bay in San Lorenzo, California. A drag queen story hour at the city library was disrupted by people the event organizers are calling Proud Boys, which you never know who really is or isn't anymore.
Proud Boy.
Yeah. Proud Boy is just it's like yesteryear's alt-right, Proud Boy is a boogeyman. So last Saturday, June 11th, the drag queen Panda Dulce was scheduled to read stories to a group of children at this library. Panda Dulce said the Proud Boys showed up and disrupted the event, calling him a groomer and a pedophile, among other things.
What was supposed to be a quiet reading time with drag queen Panda Dulce ended like this.
Did you guys call the cops?
It was stormed by 8 Proud Boys who disrupted the event. They came in and they were screaming about pedophilia and saying things like, we have to save the children. And they were terrifying the children.
The performer Panda Dulce didn't feel comfortable going on camera either. She says she immediately froze. And the first thoughts that came across her mind, is it an ambush? Are they armed? And the massacre in Uvalde, Texas. That's when she says she realized they were defenseless. Library staff say the men wouldn't leave and the rhetoric was escalating, so they called the sheriff's office immediately. But even after going through all of that, both the performer and the staff felt very strong about continuing with the reading event, so they ended up covering up all of the open windows with anything they could find just to help the families feel more comfortable. The Alameda County Sheriff's Office says a hate crime investigation is now underway, as well as an investigation into the annoying and harassing of children.
Yeah, it's like when you take all the windows out of your van to make the children and families more comfortable when the kids are inside of it. I love that description. We just covered up all the windows to make it a much more concealed and private event for everyone's comfort. That's why.
What was that, tissue paper? How bizarre.
Right, it's just a weird explanation.
And naturally, they had to bring it back to Uvalde. That has anything to do. It's like a bunch of these kids getting killed has something to do with me, trying to groom and rape your children, related somehow. Yeah.
Well, related insofar as a crazy, I guess, perceived right-wing threat. I don't know. But I found that point to be interesting, too. Suddenly, we were under threat, and we realized We were defenseless. Yeah, correct. Welcome to the club. Maybe it would help if you had a defense mechanism. Maybe you shouldn't try to ban all the defense mechanisms from everybody. Not that I think these guys were a threat, but just, yeah, to the extent you grant the point that an unexpected threat could arise at any time, maybe it is best to be prepared for such things.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that I don't think that these guys necessarily did anything wrong, or at least criminal, is because that's exactly what the sheriff's department is saying. The sheriff's department is investigating, but a department spokesperson says a crime is not necessarily obvious here. Lieutenant Ray Kelly says hate speech doesn't always constitute a hate crime. In fact, those are distinct things. Crime being the operative word in the second phrase there. He said it's a complex investigation balancing a fine line between free speech and hate leading to criminal behavior. But as far as I've seen, there's no alleged criminal behavior. There is public speech, perhaps of a crude variety, at a public facility, and then the men left when they were asked and or forced to by the people who run the building and by law enforcement.
Come on. These cops always have to do the right thing, but then bitch out a little bit, you know? Like, well, the speech might have been hateful or crass. It's like, is nobody going to say that these drag queens are hateful and crass?
Did you catch in the story there? Well, they're under investigation for the annoyance or the harassment of children. Do go on.
Who? Which
Proud
group?
Boys. The Proud Boys are. Do go on about the mistreatment of children from the people who are engaging in sexualized displays for them. And I had to cut it for time, but there were pro drag queen story hour protesters interviewed. And, well, all I can say is that our crisis of masculinity continues. If I have to go a little too far and say I'm team Proud Boy, even if they were a little mean, if I have to pick the teams that I saw in that video story, sign me up for team Proud Boy.
A little mean. I mean, come on.
You might say accurate in the terms. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Why do you want to give a sexualized display to young children? What is the purpose of this? What else am I supposed to conclude other than you have some sort of perverse sexual motivation? You want to condition the children to think that this is normal when it in fact is not. What else am I supposed to conclude? It's not adults doing weird shit in the privacy of their own homes, which was the original bargain. Now it's deviants propagandizing to kids in public spaces.
Yeah, and they'll make that admission. They'll say it's because we want to create an atmosphere of tolerance, which is just newspeak for we're trying to groom them into sexual degeneracy so that we can rape them a bunch.
Well, Susan just turned the monetization on for that one. Flipped it right back on.
Well, come on. I mean, it's like nobody's saying what this is really about. Why do you care if children are tolerant that you fuck some dude in the ass while he's dressed as a woman?
Yeah,
Why do you care if some 4-year-old agrees with your lifestyle? The only reason you would do that is if you want to incorporate them into your lifestyle somehow.
Sure. Children are notoriously rude. The children ask you rude questions all the time, and it's kind of funny. When a child intentionally or unintentionally mocks you, you know, like that's the point, is kids don't really get the rules. You don't want to condition them into these bizarre anti-rules. You know what I mean? It's like, obviously children should be taught the rules of the world by their parents, but to condition them into this sexual nonsense by some drag queen or something. What are we doing?
And it's something uniquely perverse because children have no concept of sexuality. Like, you'll see in a few years when your son like discovers his penis, he'll be like, oh, look at that. And then it's just like, it's just funny to him. And so these kids, they don't understand any of this. So why do we need to project? Why do we need to project it on them?
And I think we can all remember being young and just the confusion of development and trying to understand what it means to become an adult. And a lot of these kids are before that stage even, but to inject them with more confusion at an already confused time of your life as you're discovering all these new things and your body is physiologically changing. Absolute madness, man. But we've talked drag queen story hour to death. And I mentioned it on Wednesday, but there is a drag queen story hour at Zoo, Montana, 2 hours away from me in Billings.
You know what you need to do.
That's supposed to be community protested on Wednesday, and it's 12 to 4. I got to do the stream here at 7, but that means I could potentially make it. I'm not committing, but I'm considering.
Do it.
It's possible that I could go see what happens at a real life drag queen story hour. Zoo, Montana, Billings, Montana.